is Ashna and I'll be a virtual tutor today. In this lesson, we're going to be learning how to compare fractions with the same denominator and different denominators. So let's go over some terms. The top number of a fraction is the numerator. The bottom number of a fraction is the denominator. And basically what a fraction means is it's a part over a whole. So the numerator is the parts of the whole that we have, and a denominator is the parts that make up a whole. So some steps of comparing a fraction. The first step is to make sure the denominators of both the fractions are the same. We can only compare fractions once the denominators are the same. So if they're not equal, we have to find something that's called the least common denominator of the fractions. What this is basically a number that is a multiple of both the denominators, and we want to find the least number. So once we have found this LCD, we change the denominators of both the fractions to that number by multiplying the top and the bottom by a specific number. And then once they're equal, we can compare the numerators of the fraction to see which one is greater. So let's start simple with fractions of the same denominator. So right here we have two fractions, 5 over 8 and 3 over 8. So both the denominators are 8, so we're ready to compare the numerators. So because we know that 5 is greater than 3, we can say that 5/8 is greater than 3/8, and that's all it is. So let's just visualize what this looks like. So for 5 over 8, that means there's something that's divided into 8 parts, and we have 5 of them. So in this picture, 5 parts of the whole are shaded in, and we know that this is greater than 3/8, which looks like this, because 5/8 has more shaded in than 3/8. If you count, there are 5 parts shaded in versus 3 parts shaded in, which makes us know that 5/8 is greater than 3/8. Now we're going to go on to fractions with different denominators. So we have 2 over 3 and 3 over 4. So 3 and 4 are obviously not equal. So the first step we have to do is finding the least common denominator. And okay, so we know our denominators are 3 and 4. So the way to find this number is by seeing what number both 3 and 4 go into. So if we start with 3, we know that 3 times 2 is 6. But then if we check with 4, 4 does not go into 6. So 3 times 3 now is 9, but 4 still doesn't go into 9. So if we go 3 times 4, that's 12. And 4 times 3 is also 12. So 3 and 4 both go into 12. So we can say that it's the least common denominator between them. So basically what we did is we just multiplied 3 times 4 to find 12 as the common denominator. So for both the above fractions, we must have a denominator of 12 in order to compare them. So now we have to figure out how to convert 2/3 and 3/4 to have a denominator of 12. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to multiply a number to the top and bottom of the fraction. So for the 2/3, 3 times 4 is 12. So we have to multiply 4 to the denominator. But whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top as well. So we're going to multiply this whole thing by 4 over 4. For the right fraction, we have to multiply 4 times 3 on the bottom. So we also have to multiply the numerator by 3. So we multiply by 3 over 3. Remember, whatever we're doing to the bottom, we're also doing to the top. And this makes sense because we're multiplying by 4 over 4. And if you think about it, that's the same thing as the quantity 1. And 3 over 3 is also 1. So we're just multiplying by a different form of 1, which is actually keeping the original fraction the same. So we're going to go ahead and multiply. So 4 over 4 times 2 over 3 is 8 over 12, and 3 over 4 times 3 over 3 is 9 over 12. Now we can compare the numerators of these fractions, and since 8 is less than 9, 8 over 12 is less than 9 over 12, which means in our original problem, 2 over 3 is less than 3 over 4. Okay, so now we're going to go on to something called a mixed fraction. This is what a mixed fraction looks like. It's a whole number combined with a fraction to form one single number together. The 2 is the whole number and 1/4 is the fraction. And the way we read this is 2 and 1/4. And what this means is that we have 2 whole parts and 1/4 of another part. So there's 2 whole circles and 1/4 of the circle. In order to compare mixed fractions, we have to turn it into its improper fraction form. An improper fraction is just a fraction in which the numerator is greater than the denominator. Usually we wouldn't leave a fraction like this, but in order to compare them, we have to turn it into this form. And the way to do that is to multiply the denominator by the whole number and add the numerator. So we would do 4 times 2, which is 8, and then add 1, the numerator, which is 9, and put it over the same denominator. So 2 and 1/4 is the same thing as 9 over 4. And as you can see, the numerator is greater than the denominator, and that's what we call the improper fraction. So let's go ahead and try it by comparing two mixed numbers. So there's 1 and 3/4. So to make that into an improper fraction, we're going to do 1 times 4, which is 4, and add 3, which is 7. So it's 7 over 4. And 1 5/8, we're going to do 8 times 1, which is 8, and add 5, so 13 over 8. So now that we've converted into improper fractions forms, we're now going to check the denominators. So it's 4 and 8. And now you should know that if they're different denominators, we cannot compare them just yet. The first step is to find the least common denominator. Since 4 goes into 8, we only have to convert the 7 over 4 and make both the denominators 8. So the way to make 7 over 4 something out of 8 is to multiply the top and bottom by 2. So we're going to do that, and we're going to get 14 over 8 as the common denominator fraction. Now that we have 14 over 8 and 13 over 8, we can compare the numerators, and then we can see that 14 is greater than 13, which makes 14 over 8 greater than 13 over 8. And then 1 and 3/4, the original fraction, is also greater than 1 and 5/8. So now it's your turn to go ahead and try an example problem. Go ahead and pause this video right here. Okay, hopefully you were able to solve this problem. So these were two mixed fractions. So the first step is always to convert it into improper fraction. So we're going to go a little faster here. We're going to do 6 times 3, 18 plus 4, 22 over 6 for the left. And for the right, we're going to do 5 times 3, which is 15, plus 3 is 18 over 5. So these are the two improper fraction forms. If you didn't get this part right, go ahead and go back and try to see what you did wrong. Okay, so hopefully you got this, and now we're going to compare the denominators. So the denominators are not equal. So we have to figure out the least common denominator between them. And the way to do this is to find a number they both go into. So 5 and 6 both go into 30. So we have to make both the fractions over 30. So the way to do this on the left side is to multiply 6 times 5 and the top by 22 times 5. So we're going to do this calculation. And then on the left side, we're going to do 6 over 6 times 18 over 5. And we're going to get 110 over 30 on the left side and 108 over 30 on the right side. Now we can compare the numerators, And since 110 is greater than 108, 110 over 30 is greater than 1808 over 30, and that means the middle fraction, the left, is greater than the right. And in the original problem, 3 and 4/6 is greater than 3 and 3/5. So that was the end of this lesson. I hope that made sense and that you now know how to compare fractions. Yeah, thank you.